Okay. Well, thanks everyone
I'll
for
take care of
joining
those,
us
Tessa.
today. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We have SLA, which is a new Natura network here to present on their network. And we have Alexandra and Andreas with us here from that team. So yeah, we're going to start off with this presentation, and then we don't have another presenter scheduled for the final 30 minutes. So I figured that would be a good moment for me to just go over some of the current things that we have going on in Natura and how to keep your eyes peeled for those things. So if you're ready, Andreas and Alexandra, you can take it away.
Yeah. All right. So hi, friends. It's so nice to meet you. We're coming to you from Copenhagen, Denmark. We usually have another Alexandra with us, but something has come up, but she's very much still part of this trio. She's the head of the research and development here at SLA. But I'm Alexandra Burgos-Thorsen. I'm originally from Southern California, but currently calling Copenhagen my home, and I'm a landscape architect. And at SLA, I'm a planting designer and still working title, social design strategist. TBD, but it's so nice to meet you all.
Yeah, and my name is Andreas. I'm Danish. And if we look up to the right, it's because we have a very big screen up there that's not centered at where the camera is. So just to let you know. And I'm a philosopher. I studied perceptions of nature and how we react and understand and deal with nature. And that's why I'm here. I'm part of the R&D team here at SLA, and I'm also working in the international team in projects.
Yeah. And Andreas and I are lucky to work a lot with each other, really the interdisciplinary at work. So today we're going to be talking about the interdisciplinary method and the nature-based design practice of SLA. So we define ourselves as a nature-based design studio, and we design places for life and all life. Next slide. And then we strive to connect people with new nature and to make nature and its processes a vital and integrated part of urbanization. We help corporations, communities, cities, and states empower climate resilience and biodiversity efforts on all levels and all scales. And so we're 3 offices here in Copenhagen, in Aarhus, another city in Denmark, and Oslo. We're 130 people, though I'm sure this number has changed. We've been around for 30 years and have 1,500 projects. Also, the number has probably changed. So we're an incredibly interdisciplinary collective of people working within the nexus of nature, people, and design. And so we have a wide array of disciplines, from landscape architects, urban designers, planners, biologists, ecologists, anthropologists, and philosophers. And so in this picture here, this is a real picture from a meeting of us working on a desert farm somewhere in Abu Dhabi, which has been a really exciting project. And so we offer public space and landscape design, master planning and city strategies, and climate adaptation. But really it's so much more. Nature and ecological studies, biodiversity strategies, community engagement, lighting design, scientific research projects, and exhibitions. And we're really growing our services, especially as we adapt to the new climate and to the growing markets, and just really feeling for what is needed out there. And so everywhere, our purpose is the same, and to design spaces for all life, and our method is nature.
Yeah, and a big part of SLA is our R&D organization. Used to be called SLab, but that is also developing. It's embedded in the entire culture here, and it's a way of putting the interdisciplinarity in all the projects and in all the teams and in all the offices. We work with this trio of design, people, and nature throughout the various disciplines. This R&D office that I'm a part of connects people and connects knowledge and facilitates research and facilitates cooperation, what's it called? Cooperation with universities and NGOs and everything and everybody that we find interesting
And who find us interesting.
and who finds us interesting.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's definitely employee-driven innovation, meaning that when somebody comes with a thing that they really find interesting, or an article they have read, or something that puzzles them, we have this in our office as an integrated part of what we do to look into this stuff. And I really think that this is a special environment where people have an outlet for, whether it be mushroom farming or
Monitoring in the UAE.
yeah, there's almost no limit to what we can facilitate. We have this structure of various circles, we call them, circles that are within the different disciplines. So
Right.
the biologists have a circle, the social designers is a circle of social.
Really trying to push our engagement strategies and bridge social and ecological methods together.
Yeah. So what we do have, we have these discipline circles where we can discuss and share knowledge and share experiences, and then we can go out and use them in our various projects.
Mhm.
And it is a constantly developing part of SLA.
Yeah.
It's just changing all the time in the most positive way, I think. It's a very living organism in here. And when somebody new comes in,
Yeah.
like Alexandra for once,
Yeah.
for instance, you came in after me,
Yeah.
at least. The entire organization adapts to you and your
Yeah.
fire, which I
Yeah.
think is a
This American
American energy.
Yeah, I think for example, the method and design practice, we have something here called the EUD funds, which is from the European Union that supports your post-educational learnings. And so you can spend that however the office sees fit. And so we have these method and design practice courses, and there's 3, and it's super special because the main thing I took from these sessions is that we're in a place that's constantly trying to reevaluate what we do and how we do things to better ourselves, to thus better our practice and better the impact we have in a positive way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So how does it look in practice? We are practitioners, and we've done this for 30 years, and it's constantly changing. So we've chosen to highlight 3 different examples of SLA's nature-based design. First one is a rather small one here in Copenhagen called St. Kjeld Square and Bryggervangen. It's a roundabout and a road, part of a climate mitigation project here in Copenhagen. almost 15 years ago, we had this 1,000-year rain event where the entire city just drowned, and it was complete madness, and it was
a wake-up call that there's just no infrastructure.
Yeah, there was no infrastructure to handle rainwater at all, and it was extremely expensive, and it was quite a shock in our little, very comfortable and quiet little piece of the world, corner of the world. Funnily enough, I just put this in because this was from yesterday. We had another rain event, and the same place as you see behind was now flooded. So perhaps we have to do more. I mean, these 1,000-year events are constantly being pushed, as most of you know.
Yeah.
So we're always in a way behind. I think it was a bit funny. So the project was changing this industrial part of the city into a place that could handle rainwater. This is how it used to look. It was a lot of asphalt and not so much green. A big part of the project was to reduce the amount of asphalt. Actually, 2/3 of the asphalt on site was removed and turned into green space.
And this was also very much an underutilized, just kind of forgotten roundabout.
Yeah, it was funnily enough a lot of heavy traffic every day because of these factories, but it was also residential, so it was a bit forgotten. So what we did, we used various natural processes to handle this water. We changed topography, changing like low tech, changing the angle of the roads. We work with different types of soil. We of course work with planting, and we work with different habitats to also support the aesthetic sense of being in this neighborhood. Our plan was to take this roundabout on your left, make it smaller, and then remove a lot of the asphalt and create these edge zones between the houses and the roads. And there's two funny stories in this little graph here. First is that removing road is extremely difficult in our part of the world. And funnily enough, removing big trees, on the left there were maybe 15 to 20 rather large trees existing in the roundabout that we removed. We planted tenfold of trees throughout the entire area, but those two things was really two things to overcome. Get the be allowed to remove big trees and then remove asphalt. So but we managed, and it turned from this to this. This is quite recently after it was opened, and it was already, I mean, a massive difference. So much green, so lush, and if you are ever in Copenhagen and want to visit something cool, I always tell people to go here. You can't see in the images, but it just has such an amazing effect being there. It really is a new way of envisioning cities and envisioning urban landscapes while solving this rainwater problem. Mm-hmm. Part of the project was developing a lot of technical solutions. You see this little metal thing going under the sidewalk on the left image. We also developed this technology with engineers to handle the salting of when it was winter. We throw salt everywhere. If the salt goes into the soil and the plants, they die. So we had to solve these. We have to create this new technology of what do we do with water when we don't lead it into the sewer immediately. While solving this sort of engineering question, we created the most lush and green part of Copenhagen, and we increased biodiversity, and we also gave this entire neighborhood a identity through nature.
Yeah, and about the technology for the cloudburst mitigation and the storm and the rainwater, now there's drains where developed with the engineers where you kind of switch, and so there's a little sign that like a symbol of the sun and then a symbol of winter, like a snowflake. So in the winter when it's salted, it goes to a different drain basically. Yeah. And then you turn it for the summer and then it's directed to another drain. Yeah.
And now it just have this is a crazy atmosphere to have in a city, and it has changed the use and the life here completely. And even kids like to play now. Wow, so cute.
Yeah. Okay, so now I will talk briefly a little about our SLA's work in Canada. Thank you. And so we started our work in Canada in 2019 with the master plan, the Downsview master plan, which was a nature-based master plan. And since then have now expanded into 4 provinces and mostly in Toronto. And so what's really important in North America is for us is when we work, we are working on occupied territory, and that is something that we are reckoning with. And it's not just something that we reckon with, it's something that we very much celebrate. And so we work directly with First Nations consultants to do deep learning of traditional ecological knowledge, and so that we have First Nations knowledge of place at the center of everything we do. And so just briefly for 2 projects, an example of that is Quayside, Toronto. And so Quayside is a waterfront master plan in a very industrial area of Toronto. And working with Matthew, the First Nations consultant, we developed the concept of flow. And that came from conversations of us coming with our designer jargon of continuously using the word stormwater management. And then for Matthew, he was like, yeah, we just call that rain. And he explained to us kind of just introducing a new perspective on water, just kind of challenging our biases, I guess, of how we always treat stormwater extremely negatively. And he really helped us understand it as a positive thing. You know, rain, stormwater is water and is, you know, it's what feeds plants and supports life. And so same thing with wind. We talk a lot about wind mitigation, but rather how do we work with wind, as wind is energy. And so that's how the concept of flow came about for Quayside, where it's social flow, biological flow, production flow, and climate flow. And then here's the final rendering from the master plan. And then David Crombie Park in Toronto. This is in the heart of Toronto, and it's originally from the 70s is when it was first built. And this is actually going to be our first implemented project in North America. It's going to be starting construction sometime this year, actually. And so the main goal for us was to preserve the historical character and revitalize the existing park assets. We didn't want to come in and just completely change everything. We wanted to really elevate and celebrate what's there and what is working. And then uniting nature, people, and community. As you can see from the pictures, it's a huge section chunk. It's like 7 blocks. So there's really a mixed use of this space. And so here is the final plan in which we did 2 years of community engagement to reach this point. And personally, I was lucky enough to be the planting designer on the project. And so we are very grateful that we were able to save as many existing healthy trees as possible while adding many, many more. And having these typologies that really respond to Toronto's changing climate, and also the fact that it's a rapidly developing urban city, and also the seasonality of Toronto. And of course, as we've mentioned before, we are designing for all life. And so we had the goal and kept in mind of how can we create and cultivate habitats for local species of interest. And then here is just some renderings from the plan. So keep your eye out for David Crombie Park.
Yeah, just add a few words on our another market that we operate a lot in, that is the UAE. It's a rather new endeavor, but it is rapidly growing to being all sorts of stuff. In the beginning, we started detailing. We were brought in as like second string on this Carson Al Hosn building, which is the oldest building in Abu Dhabi. It's the top right one. It's an old fort. We did some detailing and some planting. It's not really the typical SLA project, I'd like to add. But we just doing this, we had some experience working with these plants, species, soil types that are in the UAE, realizing that there was a lot of knowledge, a lot of stuff we didn't know. There was a new reality, there was a new context. So we went back and we did this book. It's called Hands-On Flora, and it's a compilation of all the plants, their needs, their native range, and their aesthetic qualities. So we developed this in-house, and with this book, we went out back into the UAE as our foundation, and we were allowed to do the Al Fay Park. Oh yeah, we also did a lot of field work, visiting gardeners, visiting plant nurseries, understanding how does it work down there. Because I mean, coming from a temperate climate, can't stress how different how different going to this arid landscape is. So coming down there, like going back, doing our research, getting knowledge on plants, on soil types, we went back and we got to do the Al-Fay Park, which is the first biodiversity park in Abu Dhabi. And with this park, we really set the tone for a new way of doing urban landscapes. Traditionally, urban landscapes looks a bit like the one you see on the right, with the date palms and the grass lawns. That's a very, in many ways, not the most sustainable park. Whether you think in biodiversity, or you think in irrigation, water needs, or if you think in social needs, I mean, it's not the nicest place. We did this Al-Fay Park and created another way to think urban landscapes in the UAE. It's green, it's lush, it's full of comfortable little pockets where we're working with microclimate, we're working with shade to create a new way of socializing eventually, of being outside. A big part of doing Al-Fay Park was, while doing it, we figured out we need more knowledge. So we had the book and in this book we had knowledge on plants, but we also needed a lot of knowledge on irrigation. Oh yeah, I just want to show this because there's up in our climate zone, all winter, the plants, they don't grow, but down there's no non-growth zone. So if you give water to plants and sun, they just grow. So it has grown really lush, really fast. That's just cool to see. So doing this park, we had to get so much knowledge. We had to develop so many new technologies. On your left side, you see how they deal with irrigation traditionally. It's dates palms, it's lawns, it uses a lot of water constantly. Our thoughts, you see in the middle, were that if we were planting in ecosystems, we could reduce water usage by 10 to 30%. In reality, we reduced it with 50 to 75%. So this is after we did our planting strategy, irrigation strategy, we have been informing the irrigation policies in the UAE, reducing the number, pushing the number down on what you are allowed to plant, which is pretty cool. Here you see them in litters. We also used our nature-based methods to deal with some of the issues that they experience living in the UAE. Dust, wind for once, the high temperatures, of course, very important, creating shade, creating comfortable microclimate. We also made homes for local birds, local animal, flora and fauna, inviting some of the local species back into the city where they really didn't have a place before. Working with some of the native species, there's a lot of bettering the soil and taking some of the pollutants, emissions out of the air and into the soil. So doing this Al-Fay Park, we acquired so much knowledge on urban heat, on pollution, on noise, knowledge we used, and also flooding. There's a funny story, but we'll leave that. We received a cool award and everybody's happy, and we made like an amazing place. And from this park, we were then commissioned to do the Khalifa 6, which was 6 more parks. Oh, here they are. Here they are in their like newly done phase. And from the 6 parks, we got to do 104 parks. So we are massively changing how the UAE public space is. And I think there's so much coolness in this because we are changing the irrigation strategy, we're changing the biodiversity strategy, we're changing the how, like what's it called, when you, how you use your public space, the social life, the social rhythms of the residents.
Yeah.
And and then there's this little thing at the end. So this is how it looked before we came. This is a site from one of the Khalifa 6. Nothing grows there if you don't water it. I mean, that's the big difference coming from a temperate climate. There's really nothing there. And with our work, it becomes this. So we are having some sort of social impact on how people are living their everyday lives.
Mhm.
And we are traditionally, we are used to doing all this monitoring of biological life, biodiversity score, water use, all of these biological data, but now we are moving into figuring out what social impact are these parks having? How are this biodiversity affecting the lives of residents?
Yeah. For our knowledge of trying to understand local perspectives and again, back to the idea that we're constantly trying to evolve ourselves so that we can better our designs for the context that we're working in and with.
Yeah. Yeah, and a big addition to this is also that coming from where we come from, it was very important that none of the parks were gated.
Yeah.
And they are not, none of them are gated. And that is that in itself is a new way of doing social life in
Yeah.
the UAE,
Yeah.
opening up for everybody. And a part of this understanding our impact is also acknowledging that, I mean, we don't need to tell the Emirati people that that water is important, because they know, and they have known for a lot longer than we have. So it's just also, we are in the process of understanding how they think, feel, and react to our parks. And I just added this as the last slide, because this is a beehive that showed up in an acacia tree in one of our parks.
An acacia tree is like a very native, important tree in the UAE, but yeah, in the UAE.
Yeah, and it gives tasty honey, but there haven't, I assume, like the usual urban landscapes of the UAE does not create homes for bees. So we had to deal with the bees. Like if somebody was calling with an angry voice, there's bees in our park, what do? Well, we accepted that meddling with people's context and with people's homes, there will be issues. So we realized that if we are doing these parks, we also have to do signage on bees and realize that these things will happen. But we're like in a learning process, and I think that was the point of this, that we are constantly going back, visiting our design, visiting our decisions, and then bringing that into the future.
Yeah, we actually don't call the ethos of SLA is that we don't call our projects, we consider them prototypes.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, all right, so lastly, we do strategy as well. So this is from a biodiversity strategy that we did here with Pension Denmark, which is a real estate development plan. And basically our role was to help them with their nature-based solutions for urban development and also their existing real estate. And that was in an effort to reach this nature positive goal. And so for us, what we mean with nature positive is that we conserve. It's not enough to just do conservation. It's also about sustainable production and consumption. Yeah, and so that's just the last bit about our strategy.
Yeah.
And that is
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. This was so awesome. I know I can speak for everyone.
Wonderful.
We do have quite a few, well, yeah, we have a few questions in the chat. So I'm thinking maybe we can just get going with those ones and then make some space after that to go for questions that people may have not written down.
Sure. Should we exit the screen or our presentation?
Do you have your website pasted on your your first slide? That might be a good one to stay on.
We don't have the website page.
It's there.
It's right. We can just stay here.
Okay, we can just,
Yeah, that's our
Yeah, we can-
website.
oh, okay.
So why don't we start with Rembrandt Ziger's question? That's the first one that's actually a question. There's a lot in there that's just this is fantastic, but
That is good. We can't see the chat, so
Thank you.
okay.
that's great.
Do you want to unmute Rembrandt and ask your
Yeah,
question?
muted. Thanks, guys. Also, thank you for finding that an interesting question. I had so many thoughts and comments, and then I just thought, okay, no, wait till you're finished with the presentation. Anyway, I'm fully fascinated, and it's fantastic. But then, in my mind, always something pops up that, yeah, I don't know. So my question was, with all the disciplines that you work with, do you also work with psychologists?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Not in-house.
No. No, but I think it's a lens that we see things through, in a way where we're not trying to pretend, because it's a very specialized discipline, but we're thinking about mental health, childhood development, yeah, but that's a fantastic question.
That sort of branch of science or whatever, that discipline
Yeah,
in-house falls under the anthropologist
yeah,
scope.
yeah.
That's how it is right now, but yeah.
I can imagine. Thank you.
There's also
Yeah,
a question from Isabel about whether you evaluate the social and environmental impact of your work.
That is a great question. And back to about SLab and pitching research, that's actually something that Andreas and I are working on now. And since it's not finalized, maybe we can't say as much as we would like to, but we're really trying to push for a service where we monitor ecological and social impact and together, yeah. Because right now they're treated as separate, where biologists and ecologists go out into the field, and of course mostly local here in Denmark, and do field work, and yeah, in the UAE, a little bit in the UAE, but now we're really trying to make that a strong service that we provide, and just thinking about the full length of a project from the very beginning of concept to implementation to I guess like a ethic of care that we follow through and continue to monitor and learn from it.
We do biological baselines
Yeah,
on almost all our projects, and we follow up on that.
yeah,
But we don't have the same rigor when it comes to social impact.
Yeah.
Yet it's been like, but we are developing that. We are, hopefully.
So if you asking this helps support our and I think it's and it's being well received. I think people are like, yeah, of course that makes sense, and finding funding for it, of course, is half the battle, but we also find it important, especially in contexts that we're not from, as we're not trying to come do what we think is right and what works for us here in Denmark, leave, and then it actually doesn't, and so far that we haven't had issues with that, but that again is just going into the ethos of trying to make better life for the local communities we're working with.
Super. Yeah, I think I'm gonna ask Veronica if you want to ask your question, and then maybe we can move to the hand raised.
Sure. Thank you so much. I was just wondering, with all the beautiful work that you showed, whether you had to face situations where people using the space after you designed it, or people living by it, pushed back on some of these ideas, or rather not the ideas, but I guess their final execution in the real world.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that I was saying is in some of the pictures you have these like very, very lush trees and people sort of creeping through them, and I know if people in the United States would be afraid of heightened crime in those kinds of areas. So to have you
Oh,
had that
yeah.
kind of pushback, yeah.
Yeah, so I can speak from that. It's okay. We don't have necessarily pushback in actual implementation. As far as we know, again, that goes into why we need to do a care monitoring after. But from my experience, speaking from my personal experience of working in Canada, absolutely, like septed and security issues in Toronto. So it's pushback. It's pushback, but it's also like, okay, SLA was hired for a reason because people believe in our way of planting, which is multi-story, climate adaptation, native species. But it does take, I guess, some compromise because, you know, Toronto is not Copenhagen. There's very different issues at hand. And so, yeah, during the Crombie Park process, for example, there was just some things, there was like some push and pull, where we were able to get some lush planting, and then there's other places where, as much as we would have wanted there to be more lush planting, we also had to think about safety with corners and like the rails. So the fact that we were able to achieve no rails here in this picture, you don't see rails for the plantings, but in Canada, no matter how hard I don't want to use the word fought, but really tried to push for not having rails, it's just they're just afraid of people trampling on the plants or yeah, people experiencing homelessness, living in the bushes, all these things. And so I think there's a paradigm shift that we are working towards of our planting, and there is some pushback, but there is some openness, and I mean, that's okay. It's just, again, we're all learning.
Super. So let's take talk, and then I think there's a couple more questions from Laura and Julia, and then we should probably move to Tessa's updates. So 3 more questions.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks so
You want
much.
to go first? Yeah.
Yeah.
I can ask my question. Well, thank you again for this amazing. How did you handle the water irrigation problem in places like you know, in Saudi Arabia? I mean, where they have no water.
How we did it, it's I don't know if I can still just go back. It's a long and technical answer that there would be somebody who could do better than me, but we tested out the various existing irrigation methods. That's one. We changed how you plant stuff. They used to plant in sacks, or like isolated. The tree would be in an isolated
Yeah.
bowl almost. If we do companion planting, you also reduce irrigation. So it was like a trial and error of various stuff. Can you hear us? Yeah. So that's the short answer. And then shading, and then
Yeah.
native species.
I think it's like we haven't figured it out full stop. We are figuring it out and working with, again, the local communities. And I actually wasn't here for the park, so I can't speak to it so much so, but based on the current project that we're doing now, again, without saying too much, learning what you were saying with companion planting and shade, and just understanding nature's natural ecological processes and working with that. So it's like combining natural processes like succession and what you were saying, shade, and you know, when trees drop and they build humus in the soil and build up nutrients, with also human intervention of maintenance, and of course, the more shade you have, the less maintenance you need to use. And then, of course, a huge problem for what we're working with now is the salinity in the soil and in the groundwater, which will be a constant challenge. And that is definitely going to be, as we continue to work in the UAE, it's going to be a growing challenge.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that we're actually exceeding expectation in terms of lowering irrigation. We are constantly going lower. We just had new numbers for one of the 6 parks. and it was even lower than expected. So, and that is mainly due to this layered planting, companion planting,
Shade.
native
Yeah.
species, shade, all of these biological cool stuff.
And that you need to water it to establish, but once the ecosystems, native ecosystems are established, they do a lot of the work.
Yeah, when you read into these native plants, like the garth tree, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's very,
cool.
very similar to the situation we have here in Phoenix, and I would underscore that you know, once you get the natives started, they take over. So can we get 2 more questions in before? Sorry, is that okay, Tessa?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think Tag was
Okay.
next.
Okay, yeah, Tag.
Yeah, look, hi everybody. This has been amazing. So we have some of our team here, and they've been enthralled with what they've seen, but actually also what they heard. So I'm interested in like the type of language you use is very focused on learning. The prototype example, this is really interesting, and you're obviously showing a lot of humility about your vast amount of work. But I just want to pose a question. Have you tried using like temporary pop-up parks? And I don't mean like a trailer, a load of green stuff. I mean like on a larger scale, like maybe a hectare or so, to assess citizens' opinions and aspirations. Have you been used this kind of like, it's a concept we're working on at the moment, basically building these spaces and then seeing what people's responses are, but also evaluating them? Is that being part of your methodology?
That's fascinating.
We have one really cool example from a Danish project in Fredericia, which is a small Danish province, where they had an extremely polluted harbor front. They had factories there for hundreds of years. It was poisonous. On this, like rejuvenating this area, we did like temporary landscapes, incorporating them into the final landscapes. So we had like a fluid process of the ends changing. It's on our website, so you should definitely check it out. It was such a cool process. Also using plants to clean the soil. Yeah. To at least experiment with cleaning the soil. So we have experience in that, in doing these temporary landscapes, and then using them to evaluate. Yeah. Yes.
We have
Andreas?
2 projects.
Sorry.
Oh, Nico,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, it's me. Hi, my name is Nico. I'm a biologist at SLA. Funny thing, actually, the Alfei Park that you see right there was actually meant to be a temporary park too, as far as I remember. And that if that's not like a really nice story, that from something like this, that it's becoming permanent. And then there's another park, especially in Oslo, actually, where one of the main squares and the main roads, the public roads, were actually also changed into temporary urban spaces by SLA in 1 year, and then from there on, the municipality wanted it every year again, and I think it's becoming temporary now too. So there's some cool explanation, some cool.
That's super cool, Nico.
Too.
Thanks for jumping in. Also,
sorry for that.
Yeah. No, it's great, Nico. Nico is also part of this, interdisciplinary trio.
Great.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if we could get the last question in, if that's okay. That would be Julia Subin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your work. It's really inspiring. And I was wondering, how do you deal with maintenance? Do you develop maintenance plans? Do you provide trainings for park employees? Because obviously the plant is very large, and I imagine it requires quite a bit of maintenance. From my experience here in the US, parks sometimes are hesitant to implement projects like this because first they're understaffed, but they also lack trainings in how to maintain these parks. They might come to and maintain the park once a year, which certainly wouldn't be enough to something like this. So maybe you can share experiences from different countries or projects.
Yeah. This is a fantastic question. And Nico, now that I know you're here, you're more than welcome to jump in. It really depends on the context, I think, because so yes, we do provide maintenance plans. so there's maintenance plans in the UE, for example. We have somebody, a project manager here, Oscar, who goes and checks and has very good relationships with the on the ground contractors and people who are stewarding the parks. Then we do maintenance plans here in Denmark, and I think we also try to challenge the idea of maintenance. I would say, like, I feel like maintenance is kind of a contested word in our office because we want to try to use the word care, and because we're really trying to practice not how much we control the parks. And I think it is kind of a radical approach. Like and from the US and having been trained in the US and everything, like I know that would not fly in so many places. That is all about maintenance. And so I think we try to then approach our planting with some sort of resilient native approach to then mitigate the maintenance. I think the ideal would be if we could be the ones to go and work with the caretakers of the park. And so there's an example here. It's a hospital park, and so Asta, who's one of the plant specialists for the Nordic team, she goes, and it just became this organic relationship where they were really open to learn about our style of maintenance. And so then Asta goes and sees that the person there just pruned the heck out of a tree and then was like, no, and so they worked together. And so this is kind of an all over the place answer, just because it's something in the plant circle that we're talking about all the time, or like when we see projects that just the planting didn't thrive in the way that we had intended because the maintenance was completely against how we would have done it. That also happens. It's a reality as well.
I have to add an anecdote when you mentioned the hospital.
Yeah.
The Herlev Hospital is a very big project we did here, and it was very beautiful, and it has this lush and wild look to it. And when it was opened, the royal family came to open it, the now King and Queen of Denmark. And because they came, the maintenance team lawn mowed the entire thing, chopped it down and made it nice and neat. And so the images see from that inauguration was really, 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 really not our project. And it's just, I think it's something that comes up. And we also had, there's been talks of doing like our own what's it called, like Alexandra maintenance crew.
Yeah.
Like having our own crew, having our own school, but we are busy, but it's definitely something that comes up again.
And another service we would dream of course, is training before too. And I think people are going to use the park how they see fit. That's something we have to come to terms with.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Hope
you
that
guys.
was a good. Hope that was an answer.
Yeah, that was great. I think that's about all the time we have for questions. I know others are probably dying to get more in, but maybe if you guys could add your emails into this chat so that people can reach out to you directly if they have any follow-up questions, that'd be great.
Please contact us. Feel free that we love to be contacted by cool people.
Yeah.
Also uncool people.
You're in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
It's fantastic work. Thank you.
Yeah, super cool. Well, before everyone goes, I'm just going to go over a couple things that we have going on in NATURA right now. The first being that we have our annual report coming up. So if you are a thematic working group lead, and I haven't checked to see if we have those on here right now, but if you're a thematic working group lead, please fill out the survey that Loan sent by the end of the week so that we can start putting together all of the cool things that our network has been doing to present to NSF. Also, just generally, if you are a NATURA member and you have some articles that you've published that you think may be of interest to the network in general, or if you've published anything using NATURA's award numbers, please make sure you let me know about those so that we can also include those in the annual report. The next thing is that we are going to be hosting another round of early career fellowships. The applications for those will be due November 1st of this year. So now is a really great time. We're going to be sending out an email on this that you can forward out. But if you're interested in this opportunity, or you know of someone that might be, now is a really good time to start reaching out to our partner networks and potentially practitioners to, coordinate a fellowship with them. Because we do encourage people to do that no later than, like, have that partnership solidified at least 1 month in advance from the deadline. And then lastly, in regard to webinars, we're always looking for other presenters. So if you have something that you're also doing in your professional life that you think would be cool to present on to this group, please reach out to me and let me know. We'd love to have you. And I think that's about it. Am I missing anything, Luan or Nancy or Timon?
I was just writing your email address in the chat, just in case people don't have it, to send their publications. And if we have the grant number for people to include in the publications as well, maybe we can add it here. I don't have it in hand, so if you have it, put in the chat. But that's it.
Yep. Cool. Alrighty. Cool. Yes, thank you, Lon. Unless anyone has questions on those things that I just said, speak now. Forever hold your peace. All good? Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This was, again, thank you so much to Andreas and Alexandra and Nico for presenting.
Excellent.
So
Yeah.
cool. So cool.
Thank you. Excellent.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.